Many people make great requests on our channel. We appreciate each and every one of you for making the channel better and more reflective of the listeners. But this request is something that's been in the back of my mind for a couple of months. But our great follower, Joseph Mendoza, asked me the other day, he said, Jeffrey, why don't you do something about the 89-90 Nordiques? Well, could it be saving the worst for last? It was a terrible season, ladies and gentlemen, for the Nordiques, which kind of hastened their exit from Quebec to Colorado. And basically, it ruined the network, TQS, who are broadcasting most of the games. It really put the whole Quebec NHL experience into question. And again, within a half decade, they were gone from Quebec. The 90 season, ladies and gentlemen, for established franchises, probably one of the worst records ever in NHL history. They finished the season, get this, 12-61-7, with an 8-26-6 home record and 4-35-1 on the road. They had a minus 167, only scored 240 goals and gave up 407 by 7 goaltenders. Majority of them didn't deserve even to be in the lower ranks of minor league hockey. Now, what was interesting here, they did not want to bring back Jean Perron as their head coach, who finished the 89 season as their interim head coach. They would bring back, of course, the Grand Tigre former head coach Michel Bergeron, who had coached the club from 1980 to 87. Now, he left the Nordiques to coach the Rangers between 87 and 89, leading them to 2 consecutive 82-point seasons. The club also named Martin Madden as a new GM. Now, at the 89 NHL entry draft, the Nordiques had a first overall pick and selected the great Matt Sundin from NACA HK. Sundin became the first ever European player drafted with the first overall selection. In 25 games with NACA, Sundin had 10 goals and 18 points. With their second pick, Quebec drafted the great Adam Foote from the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Now, in 66 games, Foote had 7 goals and 39 points in 89. Now, Quebec also made some trades during off-season, dealing away their top goal scorer for the 89 season, Walt Podumny, along with a 4th-round draft pick to the Devils for Joe Cirella, Claude Loisel, and an 8th-round draft pick. Now, Cirella had 3 goals and 22 points in 80 games with the Devils in 89, while Loisel had 7 goals and 21 points in 71 games. He also traded Bob Mason to the Washington Capitals for future considerations, and Gaetan Duchesne to the Stars for Kevin Kaminsky. Now, he covered Kaminsky in the minors, a solid player, but he was more a WHL, what he called, project at the time than a real major leaguer. He did have 68 points with the Blades in 89. Now, right at the end of the preseason, the Nordiques, for whatever reason, traded away Randy Moller, a very dependable player, to the New York Rangers for Michel Petit. Now, Petit had 8 goals and 33 points with the Rangers in 89. Now, the biggest move the club made was, again, signing free agent Guy Lafleur to a 2-year contract. He came back with the Rangers after retiring in the 85 season, inducted to the Hall of Fame, and then signed with the Rangers for 89, where he had 18 goals and 45 points in 67 games with the Rangers. Now, the 5-time Stanley Cup winner with Montreal had a streak of 50 more goals in a season and at least 119 points during a 6-year span. He also a league high of 60 goals in 78 and led the league in scoring for 3 straight years. Now, the Nordiques also signed former Hab Lucien Deblois, who also spent the previous season with the Rangers, where he had 9 goals and 33 points in 73 games. So Bergeron was taking in some of his former Ranger players, taking in some of his assistants, but was that going to work in the regular season? No. Quebec would have a poor start to the season, going 1-4-1 in their first 6 games, before winning 2 in a row to the only game under 500. The Nordiques then lost 8 games in a row to quickly follow the playoff race, before improving to 5-12-1. But the losses kept piling up for the Nordiques, who then began to make trades. Greg Adams and Robert Picard were traded to the Red Wings for former Nordique Tony McKechnie, while Jeff Brown was dealt to the St. Louis Blues for Tony Herkus and Greg Millen. Now, remember that name, Greg Millen. Now, on February 2nd, 1990, the Nordiques were 9-36-6, and their season was all but finished. On that date, the club fired GM Martin Madden and replaced him on interim basis with former GM Maurice Fillon. Under Fillon, the Nordiques traded away Goulet, Greg Millen, a 6th-round draft pick in the 91 draft to the Blackhawks for Everett Sanapa, Mario Doyon, and Dan Vizzaletti. The trades continued as team captain Peter Stastny was traded to the Devils for Craig Willanen and future considerations, which turned out to be Randy Velicek's. Now, the roster moves didn't do anything to help the team. They only won 3 more games for the remainder of the season, again to finish 12, 61, and 7 with 31 points. The worst record in the NHL, and for established teams, one of the worst records ever. Now, the next worst record belonged to the Canucks, who finished more than twice the Nordiques' point total. The 12 wins was the fewest by a team since the Jets had 9 in 81, while their 31 points was the fewest since the Capitals had 21 in 75. It is still the worst season in Nordiques Avalanche history, and one of the worst for a non-expansion team since 1967. But the shining star, of course, was Joe Sakic, who had 39 goals and 102 points, both team highs. So put this in perspective. He only scored 240 goals, and he had 102 points on those goals. Now, Peter Stastny was the only other Nordique to finish with more than 20 counters. He had 24 goals and 62 points before being traded. McKechnie, always dependable, had 16 goals and 27 points in 48 games, while Lafleur had 12 goals and 34 points in limited action because of injuries. Now, on defense, Michel Petit was the key player with 12 goals and 36 points on the campaign, and strong rookie Brian Fogarty had 4 goals and 14 points in 45 games, but unfortunately, a minus 47 rating, the worst in the club. In goal, Ron Tugnutt led the Nordiques with 5 wins, while posting a heroic 4.61 goals against average in 35 games. Now, they finished the regular season last in scoring, 240 goals for, last in goaltending, last in power play goals allowed, almost 100, and last in penalty minute percentage at 74%. They finished the 90 regular season with a 5.05 goals against average, and they were the last team to finish the NHL season with a goal against average above 5 to the current day. Now, in the Adams division, Boston won the division with 101 points. Buffalo, 98 points. Montreal, who eventually could not go back to the Stanley Cup Finals, lost to Boston, had 93 points, and Hartford had 85. So, overall, in the Wales Conference, they were last as well, behind the Flyers and the Penguins. Now, talking about the regular season again, last 4 of the first 5 games. Later went on an 8-game losing streak, another 3-game losing streak, then 5 in a row, and did not win, I think, for almost a whole month from late November to late December. Lost her 5 of the first 6 games in January, then went on a streak of losing 11 straight until February, won on Valentine's Day before, then lost 5 straight, then lost another 6 straight, then ended the season with 8 losses. Ended up with 14 losses of the last 15 games. But actually, what's kind of weird here, the attendance was quite strong. Now, team statistics: Goulet before the trade had 45 points in 57 games. Marc Fortier had a good season, 30 points in 59 games, but the plus minus was just totally through the roof. Almost every player was in double digits for plus minus, but the big deception, of course, was Everett Sanapa eventually became injury prone. But they had a lot of good francophone players, but they couldn't work it out. But what really disappointed a lot of people was the goaltending. 7 goaltenders that year. Each one has had a terrible record except for John Tanner. Tanner lost his only start by only giving up 3 goals. But let's look over the statistics, ladies and gentlemen. Ron Tugnutt led the team with almost 2,000 minutes played, 524-3, 4.61 average, and a heroic 86% save percentage. Greg Millen, who had no reason to even be still in the NHL at the time, 3-14-1 in 18 games. Scott Gordon, 2-8 in 10 games, 5.33 average. Barry Brunetta, decent 1-2 record with a 4.08 average. Stefan Fize, again a quality goalie but a bad year, 5-1. And the goalie that everybody didn't want to play any games with Quebec, Sergei Milnikov. You bring this name up with members of the Quebec media, their heads are going to explode. He finished the season with a 1.72 record. Couldn't stop a beach ball, ladies and gentlemen. I saw one game he gave up, I think it was 7 or 8 goals, 3 or 4 in the power play. He was one of those look-behind goalies. Now, do you know what a look-behind goalie is? Every time he made a big save, or tried to make the big save, he would look behind him. Very, very, very unnecessary in the history of hockey in the NHL. Even the TQS and the CBC announcers were on him all the time. And the problem is he would be played at home. Like, the road record was terrible, but Tugnut had a tremendous skill. Like, it wasn't really his fault. But to see Guy Lafleur and Goulet and Stastny and other key players of the team have to put up with this season. And trading Peter Stastny for nothing, really. They could have easily got draft picks. But this was before the Lindros debacle. But Matt Sundin, again, it was a great draft for them. But Sundin, of course, was later traded. But when the Nordiques finally folded, it had nothing to do with losing to the Rangers. They lost a lot of fans this season because the draft picks didn't really pan out. The players they traded for didn't pan out. And the 1980s belonged to Quebec, ladies and gentlemen. They defeated Montreal in 82 and 85, played them 5 times in a decade, and were making money hand over fist. But with the Quebec Battle of Quebec rivalry pretty well out the window, there was nothing to fall back on, and that's what happened. But 89-90 season, 93 they rebuilt, lost to Montreal again, but I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I was sad for the Nordiques to see all the success they had in the 70s and 80s. And don't forget, they were semifinalists a couple of times in the 1980s. They were a top 4 club. And to see them fall from grace so quickly. But that road record, ladies and gentlemen, 4-35-1. I don't know. I don't know if it was the curse of Jean Perron or whatever, but it was a terrible year. So if you have any members of the 89-90 Nordiques, let us know with a like, comment, or subscribe. And again, thank you for the requests to our good patron. And don't forget, you're only as good as your last season. Any team can fold. It doesn't matter where it is. Montreal Canadiens were close to folding as well because of those bad seasons in the 2000s. So it doesn't take much, especially in the recession North America of the 90s and the 2000s. Thanks for listening. Bye.